Well, hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts, and we are here again today with another show. I did not do my normal Tuesday. It feels very out of sorts that I'm here on a different day on Friday instead of my Tuesday. And yeah, that was because some of you who are familiar with space weather and full moons and CMEs and geomagnetic storms and all of that stuff, some of you who aren't may not have recognized that this week was quite a doozy for many people. And yeah, I just didn't feel like doing it on Tuesday. I woke up and I was like, So anyway, I didn't. I can do that. So we are still going to get it done. So we still have a weekly live stream for you. We are now at 164 shows in a row without a miss. So we're going to keep going. Okay. Hello, Baptized in Fire. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the normal format we do, we're going to do testimonials first. When we're going to go into how garlic is not good for you. And this should be fairly intuitive. Once you start understanding that strong smells are indicators of toxicity, and then you go, garlic. Here's the weird thing. People will say they love the smell of garlic when it's, whether it's fresh or cooked, but all of a sudden when it starts coming out of somebody's skin, the same smell out of their skin or out of their breath, it's gross. Why is that? Why does somebody who has a garlic smell coming out of them, why is that gross? Because it's a sign of toxicity. That's why. It's pretty straightforward. But anyway, let's get into the testimonials. We have some pretty good ones today, some fairly long ones. Hello, Catherine. Here we go. Sarah, lovely Sarah, my assistant, has been getting our testimonials weekly from the Love Your Liver Network. If you ever wanted to see these, you can search for these on the network. If you're a member, I do not go over people's names or even initials out in the open world because it's just not worth any of the negatives that could come about from it. But anyway, if you wanted to see these are basically word for word in the Love Your Liver program. So here we go. Hello, I've been on the Love Your Liver program for maybe 2 months now. I've spent 15 years at least trying to find answers for my fibromyalgia. Oh, Joe, you may want to go get the fibromyalgia episode link. We'll keep going. I have other issues, but that's the worst one with the fewest information available about it. I survived Accutane, which was eerily similar to this feeling, which is like being sprayed with strong acids under my skin. We've talked about the chemical peel many times before. I also ate liver since childhood. At 6 months old, I was put on goat milk. So I've had a history of copper and vitamin A overconsumption and never thought anything of it. It was normalized. And the famous quote about vitamins, if you don't need something, you'll pee it out. Let me just say a couple things here. Goat milk, 4 times higher than cow's milk in vitamin A generally. I believe they actually have to feed goats. They feed goats like straight up metallic copper. Goats require copper, apparently. Goats are also associated with Satan. What a weird coincidence. And he survived Accutane, and then he was a liver eater. These are, okay, let me tell you. Accutane folks are the hardest, not the hardest to fix. They take the longest to fix. Joe posted the fibromyalgia show in the notes, or in the chat over there. So anyway, Accutane people tend to take the longest to fix. The other people who take the longest to fix are people who ate liver very regularly. So we have a person here 2 months in who has both of these in their history and then goat milk. Okay, so let's keep going. At some point, I researched the ketogenic diet and tried it. Nothing. I researched more and found the umbrella term known as a carnivore diet. Throughout this time, I slowly transitioned my diet towards more meat. I always ate meat as often as possible anyway, shifting away from carbohydrates, which I was addicted to. My behavior towards them was like a heroin addict. Anyways, different doctors in that space have slightly different takes on what is best, but even the ones with better perspectives are mistaken from time to time. That kind of confusion did not lend to me finding specific answers to my specific problem. I found that many do not want to address fibromyalgia except in passing. It's simply a health quagmire. So I continued for a year. I did notice I wanted bacon less often the more I ate only beef as a meal. Weird, because bacon was practically my heathen religion. LOL. I was addicted lightly to cheese and very addicted to butter. It was my crack. LOL. I never gave a single thought to any excesses. I should mention I'm underweight. That's a factor to consider holistically, which we do. And I'm sure he knows this. The first 2 weeks of carnivore had the usual gut flora changes and electrolyte balancing or whatever, even though I was keto for 6 months prior. Shouldn't be surprising, though. I experienced tons of improvements over 90 days, then a plateau. This is the honeymoon phase, folks. He now knows this. But yeah, tons of improvements over about 90 days, then a plateau. I rode that plateau until my pain control started to become less effective all of a sudden after several years of it as a bandage. I had to leave electrical work. I could barely climb a ladder. I hurt and often prayed for death. Went to work at a grocery store to make ends try to meet. Things were falling apart. Then my house and truck burned down. That's a rough situation. Let me get this highlighted. Okay. It was after this that someone in the carnivore world sent me a DM with episode number 124 by Dr. Garrett Smith on fibromyalgia, which Joe posted in the live chat. My jaw dropped as he basically told my life story, including timeline of events. He guessed right that I took Accutane a little over 20 years ago and that I ate liver from time to time. I'm guessing this must have been a super chat or something that I answered. Now I understand why I would crave it. It was the first time I ever heard someone show they cared about my problems and was trying to address the root cause and had a working theory of it. Mostly I'm dismissed as too difficult to treat, and let me also assure you that no one gives a rip about you if you're skinny. They hate you for it, even if you're dying in silence. All the influencers want is the 95% and maybe 2 or 3% beyond that if the optics are right. Only if you've shown improvements. If life still sucks for you, you must be the problem, is the subtext I read. It's absolutely true. I've never spent money on anyone's program or supplements or protocol or any of that, at least not until I had seen a whole lot of Garrett's free videos and began to grok some of the concepts and see their value in my situation. I spent the nominal fee to join his Love Your Liver program /network. Ordered the things he suggested that I was going to implement per the program. Got off to a decent but new and scary at first start, but soon began to get the hang of things. There's a learning curve in real life. Didn't really have improvements at first, hell, due to my ignorance of experience, or ignorance or experience. Anyway. Due to my ignorance of experience, I felt worse for a time. I never let it get beyond what I could handle. I know my limits. Ask me how, LOL. So, let's just talk a little bit about this. But notice with that carnivore thing up here, 90 days, it helped. Then there was the plateau. Then things start going downhill. We talk about this all the time. So, we have here influencers and big health guys. They don't like the complicated patients. They like they like the 1 month testimonials, the 1 week testimonials. Most of the stuff you see on Amazon supplements is like the people who took it for a week. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. We get years long testimonials. This is a 2-month one. But fibro is often, especially how I feel for this gentleman is not only is he male, which fibromyalgia is rare in males. He's also an undertype. He's underweight. This is a rough situation to start in. We got Accutane, we got eating liver, we got underweight, we got a male with fibro. I can see why he felt like nobody wanted to help him, because nobody talks about this. Anyway, so he got so much stuff for free from my videos. People try to call me a grifter on Twitter, which is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. There are people who have not paid anything to my program and who have gotten tons of results off everything I put out. And some people say I put out more free, useful stuff than anybody on the internet in terms of health. So now, this last thing, didn't really have improvements at first, and he felt worse for a time. This is a time. If you feel like crap and somebody tells you it's detox or retracing for months and months and months or years, it's one of two things. Either you're pushing too hard as a person and you're not backing off, which is what we tell people to do all the time, or the program is actually making you worse and you're not detoxing or retracing at all. I had one woman, her practitioner told her she was detoxing or retracing for 2 years. What a crock. So anyway, let's keep going. The other day, I got dental work. Under the stainless crown, they removed decay and replaced the crown. The next morning, I took a big emerald green poop. That's a bile color. I only eat beef for food. I've skinned enough mammals to know the color of bile. The charcoal adsorbed and pulled a massive amount of bile out into my poop. After 15 years of constant, unending pain, only getting worse, I felt somewhat better. I went from taking pain control every 2 to 3 hours to only needing about 4 to 5 times all day. I now have moments of so much less pain, it's almost like what normal might be. With the exception of diarrhea, I would have likely reabsorbed most of that without the charcoal to adsorb. Good, he's using the right term. This is my first small miracle. I would not have had it without this program. Folks, dentistry can absolutely ruin your health. I am not an expert on getting your dental stuff fixed. But I had another guy ask me, he's like, well, I think he said I had a root canal on one side, and he's got this super tense, tight, contracted neck muscle on the same side, like below it. He's like, do you think they could be connected? I'm like, yeah, you probably have. First thing you must do is when dentists do their little x-rays or scans or whatever of your teeth, and you get a fairly normal dentist who is not really aggressive, and they say, you don't have any problems under that root canal or under that thing. And you do. Dentists don't like to admit that there are infections under the stuff they do in the mouth, just like MDs don't like to admit that their drugs cause side effects. Oh, no, that can't happen. The more crap you have in your mouth, in general, the more I expect you to be in poor health. People say, what do I do about it? You already had the stuff done and put in. The best solution is to get it out and not put a bunch of crap back in. That's the general rule. I do not get into specifics of dentistry because I'm not an expert in that field. And I think there's a guy here in my city where you go into him, and the joke is that if you go in to see this holistic dentist here in town, he gives everybody minimum a $10,000 treatment plan. So he's kind of a shyster. People in all fields are shysters. Don't think that any field is immune to that. There's another another dentist here in town, holistic dentist, who basically tried to become a whole naturopathic doctor's office. She was going to do all of people's health problems. She couldn't just stay in her lane and do dentistry. So anyway, let's keep going. I went from making decisions on which caliber tastes best for breakfast. I hope you understand what he means by that. I don't want to go into it too deeply. To planning my future in positive terms, like someone with a future again. Dr. Smith gave me real hope. Like Vedanta, you trust the process but look for fruit, the experience to judge the truth for yourself. I don't just take his or anyone's word for it. I don't care how brilliant a theory is. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. This is the only thing I found that agrees with experiment and makes logical sense to me, neither mainstream nor alternative. It exists outside of that in a realm of its own. I actually kind of like that. I like that. Even these early results are adding proof to me of the validity of the basic principles in the Love Your Liver program. I now have not just hope, Garrett gave me that too, but also faith that I can and will get better and feel human for once in my life. The first 40 years is just practice anyway, LOL. Here's to 60 plus more. Thank you, Garrett Smith. Feel free to use this. Just redact name and anything you feel should be left out without losing context. I don't run SEO to see if this is bannable, LOL. Censorship sucks, and sometimes we got to work around it to be heard. Perhaps my next testimonial will be more clear-headed, easier to follow when I've detoxed more metals from my brain. This is a 2-month testimonial, folks. And if that crown was getting in the way of his progress, then maybe it's less than 2 months, if you know what I mean. We're taking this gentleman from, as he was basically saying, suicidal thoughts to having hope. So let's go. L-theanine update, the second testimonial, L-theanine update, 2 months. Before I go into this, for those of you who don't know, L-theanine can chelate copper, and this is most likely the mechanism of it as to why it helps with anxiety and depression, and it helps calm down the hyperstimulation feeling of caffeine, because caffeine dumps copper into your system from the liver. I went over this research on Twitter, and why theanine is known to help with sleep. And it's generally calming, because it is your copper that is why you are most likely anxious, why you can't sleep well, why you're tense. Copper does that. But what do we have out there? All these influencers pushing copper. Okay. And then the infertility psyop that I talk about a lot, what do they use to make women infertile? Copper IUD. What do you got all the influencers pushing? Eat liver for tons of copper and vitamin A. Both of those are infertility agents. Anyway, let's go. After taking 800 to 1,000 milligrams of L-theanine daily for 2 months now, just so you know, 1,000 milligrams is as high as I suggest anybody experiment with. Not medical advice. If someone chose to experiment with L-theanine, I would not suggest that they go higher than 1,000. How's that? After 800 to 1,000 milligrams of L-theanine daily for 2 months now, my copper toxicity symptoms have nearly disappeared. Insomnia happens infrequently now, can fall asleep faster than before when it does resurface. I'm not watching the clock until 3 a.m., but can fall asleep around midnight. Trouble falling asleep initially, folks. When you lay down in bed and you can't fall asleep, this is classic for copper toxicity and potassium deficiency. Restless legs, almost non-existent. Feel it slightly every now and again, but it's nothing terrible like before. An extra 200 milligram dose takes care of it. Copper symptoms are tingling and buzzing. Restless legs is what? Okay. Mood swings. PMS. What PMS? Okay, so PMS is gone. Ladies, your menstrual cycle issues, your hormonal issues, ladies, are very copper related in general. I have great energy during the day. I'm sleeping well at night. I need less magnesium lotion. In short, I'm finally in a really good place. I've never been able to tolerate zinc on this program, so my next experiment will be if I can start taking a small amount of zinc, but I'm in such a good place, I'm reluctant to mess it up yet. Okay, now this last testimonial is, I know he doesn't mind me saying it's JoJo or Zendog breath if you're around the areas in the low vitamin A world. So let's do this last one. This is a long one. I crashed on 11/20/22 with isotretinoin-induced sacroiliitis. Crushing pain cut my sleep down to 3 naps in 24 hours of 15 minutes or less. That's all his sleep was. 15 minutes, 3 times, 24 hours. Was stuck pushing up off of his hands, elbows when too fatigued, on a walker, countertop, anything that was to relieve his pain. Could not sit, stand, lay down without severe pain. Now, I don't remember if Joe's issue was actually isotretinoin. Oh, there he is. Zendog, was it, did we just to figure out, did you actually take isotretinoin, Accutane, or was it just from vitamin A toxicity over the years? So for those of you who don't know, isotretinoin is 13-cis-retinoic acid. That is one of the things that when you consume vitamin A in the form of beta-carotene or retinol, it turns into, one of the things it turns into is 13-cis-retinoic acid, the exact same compound that is Accutane. So if you eat vitamin A, you are making Accutane in your body. You're making retin A in your body. It's not a metabolite. It's what they actually call active vitamin A. I don't know, the gaslighting and confusion in the vitamin A world is so obscenely everywhere. Okay. Jack, if you want to watch my diabetes episode, everything about vitamin A is bad for diabetes. Just because they wrote some theory papers about retinoic acid helping with diabetes doesn't mean anything's ever been done. That's why you've never heard about it ever being treated. Or they tried it in a study and they never published it. There was, I think, 6 or 8 papers published where they were theorizing that Alzheimer's could be helped by retinoic acid. And there was all sorts of theory papers. And they never published a single study on it. Weird. So people will go and they'll look in the research and they'll be like, oh, vitamin A is good for Alzheimer's because there's all these theory papers. And then you say, can you find one paper where they showed retinoic acid had benefit in Alzheimer's? And there's not a single one. Or they were disappeared. So, yeah, the studies are pretty clear that vitamin A, the higher the vitamin A, the worse the insulin resistance. The lower insulin sensitivity, the higher the insulin resistance. It's pretty clear in the research, and I go over that in the video. Okay, took a couple weeks with various docs to eliminate all suspected causes. Disc was the most dreaded. Pain did not recede. It took a couple days to realize I would never be able to eat liver again. That and previous diet studying experience put me on to an idea of vitamin A toxicity. I found Garrett and Grant through Judy Cho in December of 2022. I read Grant's books and all I could of Garrett's live streams. I exchanged and argued with Garrett for a month. I started applying Garrett's ideas January of 2023. Now, let me be clear about how Joe did this. People who come at me on Twitter and who are a-holes and are coming to tell me how things work and that I'm wrong, they get blocked very quickly. I have a very strong and very quick block finger, kind of like my trigger finger at shooting competitions. Now, Joe came at me with respect, and he asked honest questions, and he did, I believe I remember he was kind of pushing back in certain ways, but he was pushing back with respect. And so he got to stick around, and then you'll get to see what happened to him because he got his questions answered in, I respectfully answered his questions because he respectfully asked them. People who do not do that do not stay. Okay. Now, he said this was before the order of adding stuff list was written. This is in the Love Your Liver program, the order of adding stuff. People, if you're in the Love Your Liver program and you don't look at the order of adding stuff on a regular basis to see, go back through it. You don't just go through it once. It's made so you can go back through it and look through it again. So you can see, what have I missed? What did I not do? What am I not sure of, if it helped or not? Like, Joe is one of the biggest fans of the order of adding stuff, and he's using it properly. Okay. Garrett started by telling me what the first steps would be. Throughout our conversations, he expressed how sure he was that this would resolve. Once I got a few 90-minute naps, I started to pay attention. I scheduled my first consultation with Nathan, who is the other practitioner we have other than Hope and Kelsey now. We got 3 practitioners now, and did the hair test. Okay. I suffered through January and most of February with some hand-holding as I slowly worked my way into the ideas on the order of adding stuff. I ran through nothing. He means he didn't push hard through anything. It is more like slowly adding parts to a truck. If we add the fuel system without an electrical system and the vehicle does not run, it is not because the fuel system is worthless. Running through a list of systems is not how trucks get rebuilt. The systems need to all be set up in place, working together. Any symptom is an indicator our systems are not working together. Very good. Very, very good. It took me until March before I got through phase 2 of the order. That's the link to it. You can type that. This is a private link. This is inside the program, so you can't just go and see it unless you're a member. It took 3 months because each item was added individually and slowly, 1 item per week in tiny enough doses to cause no worse problems than I already had. Very good. By mid-March, I still could not take oral potassium supplements that I plainly needed. Okay, so I'll say this at the end. Doc, Nathan, and Hope talked me through Topical instead. Long, hot foot baths up to my knees in hot water. Charcoal, potassium, and magnesium. Black toenails lasted 6 months. Oh, well, he just had, you get charcoal in little nooks and crannies, and they can be, I don't know, do I still have, yeah, you can kind of see it on my thumbnail. I got charcoal on my thumbnail yesterday, and if you were soaking your feet in charcoal every day, that could be rough. So, okay, let me just say something about before everybody runs out and starts doing topical potassium. First of all, he was saying he could not take the oral potassium supplements that he plainly needed. So it's like we can know that he has potassium deficiency symptoms, but he's not tolerating oral. Okay, then you can try Topical. Now, I'm going to tell you folks out there, if you're trying Topical, you are not using as much topical potassium as you would use magnesium. Okay, I think the ratio that we kind of found works is about a 16 times as much magnesium as potassium. So like when we add magnesium chloride and potassium chloride to a bath, it's like a cup of magnesium chloride to a tablespoon of potassium. So there, I believe there's 16 tablespoons in a cup. So we're talking a 16-to-1 ratio. So potassium topically or in water, like a bath, seems to be absorbed much, much more potently, or it's just potassium in your blood can affect your heart rhythm and other things faster and more than magnesium. Okay. Like I've talked about before, I did an IV of like 5 grams of magnesium from magnesium sulfate in a half hour. I took 5 grams of magnesium into me, and all I felt was I felt warm and I felt a little kind of stoned for about a half hour, and then it went away. So you can take tons of magnesium into your bloodstream and not have huge effects. Potassium is not the same. So you must be more careful and slower with potassium. And it seems that topically can be really potent. So we are not doing anywhere near the same doses. Okay. By the end of March 2023, I was sleeping 90-minute naps a few times a day. Finally getting completed REM cycles was my first huge improvement. At that point, my wife was fine with my subscription to Love Your Liver and the cost of the consult. My first solid 10.5 hours sleep in April justified my buying the Inner Circle subscription fee, that's the private live stream that we do. I usually do it after this, but we're not doing that today because I already did it earlier this week. Hanging my walker up in the laundry room on April 15th, 2023 was major. I also sat down on the couch for the first time that day. I walked on my own power for the first time since 11/22/2022. I went back to work in May 2023. Like, we get people back to work, folks. If you're out of work because of your pain and your stuff's going on, we get people back to work on a regular basis. I have improved almost continuously with ups and downs since then. Okay, so Joe was saying tons of liver and Weston A. Price Foundation for decades. Dairy, eggs, liver, all that stuff. It's not good for you, folks. This is why Master John's always sick. What do you say? Ikura, salmon, eggs, liver, and keto. Oh, keto to make sure you absorb as much of the fat-soluble poisons. So make sure you have a high-fat diet so you can soak up as many fat-soluble toxins as possible. And then that's sarcasm. And then more sarcasm is to eat eggs, which have vitamin A in them of both types. They have carotenoids and retinyl esters, and then take it with choline, which you need to store it with fat. And then it has fat in it. And then people do what? They cook their eggs in butter, more fat and more vitamin A. Zen Dog was saying, Doc, I want to repost all these testimonials on Grant's forum, right? Yes, we're working on Grant's forum. I've been chatting with him about it. We will hopefully either it won't be around much longer or it will be fixed. It's up to Grant. So we're working on it. My point in all this, how long have you worked so he's kind of talking to Love Your Liver members here. How long have you worked your way into the order of adding stuff list? Not run through, but worked your way into. How long have you given the program? Not just each item individually, but for the program to work for you. How much time have you put into your own individual protocol and let it work for you? So this is why it's a do-it-yourself program. And Joe did it right. Joe worked with Nathan too to work on his minerals, and Joe is working the program the way I suggested. He listens to me and he follows the instructions. The people out there who tend to fail on the program it's user error. There could be lots of reasons for that. So he's writing this to somebody there in the program. Please understand that I relate to your situation. I am guessing you did not have the imperative or gun to your head at that time as I did. While I was going through all of that from December 2022 until April 15th, 2023, that's 5 months, folks. I put in 18 to 20 hours daily studying Grant's and Garrett's books and blogs. Besides the pain and lack of sleep, I had nothing else I could do. I was stuck, leaned up against a countertop, pushing down on my hands, grinding my teeth with a laptop in front of me. My interests were focused. Even so, my questions on Love Your Liver were more like begging. I was intent on finding out how to slow down my liver the first 3 months, even as everyone told me to work to improve my bile excretion in my poop instead. They were all right. When the liver is dumping out toxic bile fast enough to cause symptoms, slowing it down is not an option. Helping get the bile entirely out of the body is the best choice. Yes, Zendog is one of the biggest proponents of charcoal we have on the entire program. He is the leader of the Black Oatster cult, as he calls it, the BOC. So it's oats and charcoal and water. And I don't know if you guys tend to do it. You guys tend to do it savory, right? I think with some salt. And then he's doing his charcoal any other way that he, probably just orally or bath or foot soak or whatever. So I found Garrett and Grant through Judy Cho in December. Judy Cho's podcast that I did with her has been a great help to this movement. I really appreciate her having me on. Grant's books convinced me the idea was worthwhile. I took a few weeks on Grant's blog to recognize nobody there could help me. It took a few weeks on Grant's blog to recognize nobody there could help me. Grant's blog is not a place to go get help, folks. Grant's blog or Grant's forum at this point, his forum especially, is a wasteland of people who don't understand what they're talking about, but they really just want to sound smart. I needed clinical skills. It took arguing with Garrett to convince me, and even then I needed to talk with successful clients he had helped ahead of me. Then I joined Love Your Liver and met a whole long list of folk ahead of me. All have been helpful since. Like the man says, it is a marathon, not a sprint. I think, was it Joe? Did you start the idioms list? There, everybody on Love Your Liver starting a little thing of my sayings like the poison always wins and marathon, not a sprint, and all these little idioms. If you think the idea has some merit, then go all in, dedicate time. Start over on the order of adding stuff list. Yes, I wanted to go over this testimonial because the order of adding stuff is really, really important. Go through it again and again, folks, so you don't miss things or just test these things out. Go so slow in upping dosages and so low in starting dosages that you find no downside effects. Then build your own protocol up to where things start working for you. Yes. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that. Go slower. Back off. Look for any changes, good and bad. Talk with your talk with your consultation guy like me or Nathan or Hope or Kelsey and other people here with specifics. Tweak your protocol and try again. I was frustrated by potassium for a month. It was excellent when I found a way around that obstacle. I still restart the order of adding stuff list as often as needed. I know this is one person's experience. I could be wrong about what it will take for all of this to translate into good things for you. For what it is worth, I handled the thought of my sacroiliac still ripping me up after all those months by considering that I could be wrong. Low vitamin A might not fix my problem. All these successful long-timers on Love Your Liver might not help me. At that point, though, knowing what I knew about vitamin A, copper, and B6 toxicity, I also knew that I could not improve without addressing these problems. Searches outside of Love Your Liver showed me that there is no one else out there better equipped to guide me through addressing these problems. No one else is improving as fast in clinical work in this area either. As an aside from all the above, when I woke up screaming over my sacroiliac on November 22nd, 2022, I was also passing kidney stones. The previous 19 years made me all too familiar with stones. I knew immediately the stones were secondary to and not causing the pain. Even so, through all those months, I passed sand and grit all day and 10 flax-sized seed-sized stones daily. Say that 10 times fast. 10 flax seed-sized stones daily. The occasional rice grain-sized stone added spice. I also had edema in both lower legs and feet that swelled more than double. Thought my right toes would burst. Okay, let me tell you, folks. Vitamin A causes hypercalcemia. Vitamin D supplements cause hypercalcemia. It may not show up on your blood test. So technically, if I'm saying hypercalcemia, it means high calcium in your blood. What vitamin A and vitamin D and copper toxicity do is they take calcium out of your bones and it gets deposited into soft tissues because your body needs it out of the blood or it will affect your heart and your brain and could kill you. So your body will maintain the blood very carefully, but what it will do is move the calcium because it can't stay in the bones. It's not staying in the bones. It goes into the blood and the body will get it out of the blood by putting it into places like the kidneys. That's kidney stones. I have a paper on dogs. I couldn't find anything on, there was one paper on vitamin A and kidney stones in humans where they showed that they thought if a vitamin A deficiency would cause kidney stones in humans. And what they really found was they found lots of people with super low vitamin A levels and no kidney stones, but they still had low vitamin A levels and no vitamin A deficiency problems. And then I have a study in dogs that showed that the higher the vitamin A level in the blood of dogs, the more kidney stones they had. So we have Joe here who was a Weston A. Pricer and a liver eater and just passing tons and tons of calcium crystallized stuff out of his kidneys into his pee. Okay. So Doc and Nathan had me whining about a few symptoms all along and plenty of reasons why I could not do what they asked I try. They worked new ideas and methods to accommodate. In the meantime, bottom line was they kept me focused on ways to get the toxic bile out that paid off in little improvements, usually not the ones I sought, but invaluable to the process. And all those symptoms subsided in due course as I worked through the list and kept improving and sticking to my protocol. I never did slow down detox. Life is good and getting better as colon, kidneys, lungs, and skin get less damaged and more effective at excreting toxins. Okay? So thank you very much for that, Joe. Really appreciate it. And you deserve all of it because you're the one working the program. So let us go to, now that we did all that, now some people's favorite little spice, we get to go into why garlic is really, really not good for you. What we do on this, so if you guys haven't seen the low toxin diet basics video, I go over sulfur foods in this. Sulfur slows your detox. I don't care what people on the internet say. They're like, oh, you need sulfur to run your detox. No, you don't. I mean, okay, it's maybe part of it. If you are eating meat, you will have no shortage of sulfur in your diet. You will have plenty of sulfur. That's all. That's the only place you really need to get sulfur from is meat. Okay. You do not need to be eating cruciferous vegetables. You do not need to be eating. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze. Felt that tingle. So, you do not need to be eating alliums, onions and garlic. You do not need to be eating crucifers, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, other ones. You do not need to be eating egg whites. You do not need to be eating dairy. Those are the highest sulfur foods. Sulfur slows your detox. So let's go into that. And let's go into the research of how garlic has been shown to be toxic to people. And even, I mean, we know about animals, but I'm going to cover that a little bit too. So let's go. Here we go. First, I just wanted to go over the basics. The very basics. The most obvious things. Why isn't this not giving me my... Hold on, let me see if I can get my highlights on here again. Didn't want that. There we go. Can you eat too much garlic? Garlic can cause bad breath, heartburn, stomach issues, and other unpleasant side effects. Okay. This is the real basic stuff, folks. But again, why do people like the smell of garlic in food, but then when it's on somebody's breath, it's gross? That doesn't make any sense. If you guys haven't seen, Joe, you may want to get my deodorant video, one about how to stop body odor. Folks, if the more sulfur you eat, the more you stink. They measure bad breath by one of the things they measure in it is hydrogen sulfide content. They measure body odor by that. Why do you think these teenage boys stink of onion? Your body doesn't want all this sulfur. So it's not just bad breath, it's body odor too. It's a big part. Let's just run through this. Side effects of garlic. Increased risk of bleeding. One of the most serious side effects of eating too much garlic is an increased risk of bleeding. It is messing with your blood. Gosh, if something's messing with your bleeding, it's probably messing with your oh no, Joe, look up wasn't it? Hold on, I'll go find it. Shouldn't take me long. Let me go find the body odor. There we go. Here we go. So Joe can post this. And there. Here, I'll show the screen just so you guys can. This is, so Joe, if you want to show my screen, this is what it looks like. How to fix body odor with nutrition. We have tons and tons of people who have fixed their body odor issues and their teenage boys' body odor issues. And, you know, it just, if you smell, you're toxic. How do you smell less? Stop putting toxins in and get enough magnesium and get enough zinc. That's the summary of that video right there. But you got to know the toxic things. But the big ones are the sulfur things. So garlic can thin your blood. What does this probably mean that garlic is affecting? It means it's affecting your liver, which we're going to show. Garlic breath. Again, we talked about that. These sulfur compounds, these variety of sulfur compounds may cause bad breath, especially when eaten in large amounts. Digestive issues. So this is for those of you who did FODMAPs, fructans, heartburn. If you have GERD, so Joe, you may want to post up the GERD. Oh, sorry, I didn't share this one. So if you have GERD, we have the GERD episode. Joe, you may want to post that. We fix that often. You may want to consider lowering your garlic intake. Garlic may decrease lower esophageal sphincter, LES tone, which is the ability of the muscles at the bottom of your esophagus to close and prevent acid from entering your esophagus, right? In turn, this may trigger acid reflux. Well, we now know that acid reflux is actually bile reflux, and sometimes it has acid in it and sometimes it doesn't. And that's all in that reflux episode, okay? So that's the basics. That's the mild stuff. Now, the review of toxicity of Allicin from garlic. Now, this is what they try to sell you in supplements. Here we go. Recent studies have shown increased usage of garlic in local herbal medics. I think they mean medicines for different purposes. According to Alari, many side effects were recorded in different patients using garlic herbal concoction. These are not native English speakers in our community. This article critically reviews the toxicity involved in the overusage of garlic in order to enlighten the reader on the side effects associated with excessive usage of garlic. This article does not annul the medicinal importance of garlics that has been highlighted in other researches, but it's known that the thin line between drugs and toxins is the dosage. The thin line between drugs and toxins is the dosage. I don't want either of those. Some effect of this toxicity may not necessarily be lethal, but alters the normal physiological conditions in patients. Let's go over this part now. The mechanism of toxicity of garlic can be traced to its pharmacological active component allicin, which is gotten from the metabolism of allicin present in garlic. Allicin being an organosulfur compounds. Just remember, organosulfur, there's going to be so many sulfur words we're going to go over, is found to act as a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Should you be taking antibiotics all the time? Having bactericidal effects on both gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. Therefore, excessive usage can lead to killing of normal body's flora, causing colonization of the body by foreign microbes. Your gut we're going to go over gut problems in sulfur. Okay? You shouldn't be taking a broad-spectrum antibiotic every day in high doses. Although side effects of superinfection due to the usage of garlic were not recorded in Alari, but we strongly believe that excessive usage of garlic might lead to infections and even septicemia if proper measures are not taken. The other and major mechanism of toxicity of allicin is similar to that of organophosphate compounds found in certain plants. This is due to the effect of allicin has on autonomic nervous system due to its inhibiting activities on cholinesterase, thereby making it act as an indirect acting muscarinic agonist. This is a pesticide. Organophosphate pesticides. Go look them up. Glyphosate is considered almost one. Okay? You're eating a pesticide and an antibiotic. This is sounding good. When in excess, toxicity of cholinergic receptor agonists set in, which includes meiosis, salivation, sweating, bronchial constriction, vomiting, diarrhea, cognitive disturbances, convulsion, and coma. Wait until you see what garlic does to the brain. Okay? This toxicity is as a result of the parasympathetic effects of allicin, diarrhea, and hyperdefecation as reported in subjects. That's like way too much pooping. Was as a result of parasympathetic stimulation of the gastrointestinal tract, leading to increased GI contractility, and movements lead to increased number of toilet visits in patient, and this may result in hydration and also hypovolemic shock. So they mean dehydration and hypovolemic, not enough blood volume shock. Bronchoconstriction may be very lethargic in asthmatic patient using allicin supplements. The effects on the central nervous system is due to excess acetylcholine that's not broken down by a cholinesterase. Some patients experience acute bradycardia, that's a fast heart rate, and loss of consciousness after excessive intake of garlic concoction over a long period of time. This is due to excessive parasympathetic stimulation on the heart, leading to reduced heart rate and bradycardia was slow heart rate. Tachy is fast. I got them switched there. Okay. And this is due to excessive parasympathetic stimulation on the heart, leading to reduced heart rate and reduced force of contraction of the heart, thereby reducing the cardiac output. The reduction in cardiac output also leads to reduced blood supply to the brain, which can be very lethal as it is evidenced as loss of consciousness and syncope, that's fainting. The toxicity of allicin in the autonomic nervous system can be reverted by parenteral administration of atropine. That's one of the things they use in a crash cart to try to save your life. Okay. So organosulfur compounds, organophosphate compounds. Similar to pesticides, broad spectrum antibiotic. Yeah, let's take tons of it every day. Now let's just remind ourselves, garlic and onion toxicity in animals, okay? People will go, well, yeah, it's different for them. Well, what's affecting the animals? What is affecting the animals? The funny thing is that people noticed early on in the Love Your Liver program was that the very same foods that we tend to say are bad for dogs and cats are also bad for us. It was a really funny thing. Let's just be clear here. In terms of animals, garlic is 3 to 5 times more toxic than onions. Which one smells more? Well, we all know. Nature gives us signs. What causes the toxicity in animals? Sulfur. Oh, sorry, did I forget? Sulfur-containing oxidants in allium are thought to be responsible for the hemolysis or the red blood cell destruction that occurs after ingestion. Okay, so it is the sulfur that causes the problem in animals as well. I think that's all I had on this one. Now, dun, dun, dun. We talk a lot here about aldehyde dehydrogenase and aldehyde dehydrogenase inhibition, ALDH. It is, in my opinion, the most important detox pathway in the body as related to vitamin A and all these other aldehydes that people are often willingly eating. Vanillin, the flavor in vanilla, is an aldehyde. Cinnamon is almost all aldehydes. Like, people are putting these smelly things in their food so they can consume aldehydes. So, is aldehyde dehydrogenase inhibited by sulfur compounds? In vitro, so that's cell studies, and in vivo, in actual humans and animals. Studies were performed in vitro, so that's a cell study, using yeast, aldehyde dehydrogenase, and various reactive sulfur species. I don't know how to, I'm not going to worry about the Ne2S, GSSH, K2SX, Ne2S203, and garlic-derived allyl sulfides. The effect of garlic-derived trisulfide on ALDH activity was also studied in vivo in the whole rat liver. They obtained results clearly demonstrated that ALDH could be regulated by sulfur species, which inhibited its enzymatic activity. Isn't that, they tried to say that very nicely. It could be regulated by sulfur species, but it's inhibited. No, so we don't need to use regulated. They could just say that ALDH could be inhibited by sulfur species. Okay. After the treatment with polysulfides or hydropersulfides, the level of protein-bound sulfur increased while the activity of the enzyme dramatically decreased. Moreover, the study demonstrated that ALDH activity was inhibited in vivo in the rat liver after garlic-derived trisulfide administration. This is the first study reporting the regulation of ALDH activity by sulfane sulfur species, and the results suggest that it leads to the inhibition of the enzyme. Sulfur slows your detox. Why is everybody so toxic? We tell them to go out and eat tons of onions and garlic and cruciferous vegetables and eggs and dairy, and yeah, that's why people detox so crappy. Now, I'm not gonna play this video, but this video, Dr. Robert Beck, garlic is a poison. It's from back in the 60s. Okay. Oh, I didn't share yet. So sorry, here it is. So here's what the front of it looks like. Dr. Robert Beck, garlic is a poison. There's quite a few people who have reproduced this video on YouTube. I'm going to read what he said, which is on this next page. Okay. So see if you can see here. Oh, let me make it a little bigger. One more. There we go. This is an excerpt from Garlic Toxic Shock, reprinted from Nexus Magazine, 2001. Was it 60? No, it was 90. Sorry, it was 90s. The source was the lecture by physicist Dr. Robert Beck, given at the Whole Life Expo, Seattle, Washington in March 1996. So physicist, not a nutritionist, because most nutrition people are lost. It's like Grant had to be an engineer to figure out vitamin A toxicity to spread it so we could all figure it out later. Like, people are figuring out things in nutrition from other fields because the way we do nutrition sucks. People are like, well, it's natural, it must be good. No, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, a synthetic is probably bad. Generally, we can make that assumption, but that doesn't mean all natural things are good. Okay. So this is basically like a transcript from that video. Garlic is so toxic. It is a specific poison for higher life forms and brain cells. The reason garlic is so toxic is it contains the sulfone. They also will spell this with an F. So S-U-L-F-O-N-E or S-U-L-P-H-O-N-E. A sulfone hydroxyl ion that penetrates the blood-brain barrier just like DMSO, a sulfoxide. We're going to go over DMSO in a little bit. They penetrate the blood-brain barrier. So you better hope that whatever goes into your brain from that garlic is not bad. Oh, well, we're going to show it's bad. We know it already slows down your... Okay, so think about this. Do you guys remember, if you saw the dopamine episode, I went over ALDH. We go over ALDH all the time. ALDH, it is theorized that Parkinson's is caused by the breakdown product of dopamine. It turns into dopaldehyde, which then has to go through ALDH. So if you were eating lots of garlic and it's penetrating your brain and it inhibits ALDH, uh-oh. You know how they put garlic in all these foods now? Like, you can hardly buy food in the store without garlic. Okay, so this sulfone hydroxyl ion is a specific poison for higher life forms and brain cells. We discovered this, much to our horror, when I, Bob Beck, was a manufacturer of EEG, electroencephalography equipment. Those are the brain scans, okay? So they're doing brain scans, and they watch and see what garlic did. We'd have people in our testing programs come back from lunch, and we would find that their brains looked clinically dead on an encephalograph. which we use to calibrate their progress. We would ask, quote, well, what happened? They would say, well, I went to an Italian restaurant and there was some garlic in my salad dressing. So we had them sign things promising that they wouldn't touch garlic before classes, or we were wasting their time, their money, and my time. Maybe some of you are pilots or have been in flight tests. I was in a flight test engineering in Doc Hallen's group in the 1950s. The flight surgeon would come around every month and remind all of us, don't you dare touch any garlic 72 hours before you fly one of our airplanes, because it'll double or triple your reaction time. You're 3 times slower in your reaction time than you would be if you'd not had a few drops of garlic. This is the 1950s. They didn't have the science. They just watched guys. Okay. Well, we didn't know why for 20 more years until we were using electroencephalograph equipment, and we found out that garlic usually desynchronizes your brain waves. This means it makes your alpha waves go away and replaces them with beta waves, which then make you tense and anxious. That's the EEG. And then you'll get to see what they say in yoga about, or meditation type things and yoga about eating garlic. So I funded a study at Stanford University, and sure enough, they found that it's a poison. If you rub a clove of garlic on your foot, you can smell it shortly thereafter on your wrists. So it penetrates the body. This is why DMSO smells a lot like garlic. Those of you who have taken DMSO, you know it comes out and will make you smell like garlic. That sulfone hydroxyl ion penetrates all the barriers, including the corpus callosum in the brain. That's what connects your 2 halves of your brain. Any of you who are organic gardeners know that if you don't want to use DDT, garlic will kill anything in the way of insects. You remember how we just went over it's like organophosphate pesticides? Now, most people have heard most of their lives that garlic is good for you. Consider the mothers who at the turn of the 20th century would buy morphine in the form of morphine sulfate from the drugstore and give it to their babies to put them to sleep. Yes, morphine was legal over the counter back then. He's using an example of toxins that we consider are good for us, or they just become normalized. If you have any patients who have low-grade headaches or attention deficit disorder, or they can't quite focus on the computer in the afternoon, just do an experiment. You owe it to yourselves. Take these people off of the garlic and see how much better they get very, very shortly. And then let them eat a little garlic after about 3 weeks. They'll say, my God, I had no idea that this was the cause of my problems. This includes the de-skunked garlic Kyolic, the Kyolic pills, and some other products. For garlic fanatics, this is making me very unpopular, but I've got to tell you the truth. Well, you all know here, I don't care about being popular with a bunch of foodies. I'm not here to make friends with foodies. I'm here to get people better. So we got that. Now I wanted to go to this other article from the same people, the Biocybernaut Institute. Some people first hear about eliminating onions and garlic when they start taking yoga lessons. Onions and garlic are described as promoting a rajasic, I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'm just going to say rajasic temperament, a somewhat hyperactive state of mind. The rajasic person is filled with willful and overactive mental and physical activity. A rajasic temperament, active ego and will, makes it harder to discipline the mind required in meditation and during alpha and other deeper types of neurofeedback training. So we have pilots, we got yogis and meditative people, we got the EEG. It's ruining your brain. But everybody's always been eating tons of garlic. Maybe not. Maybe you don't know. In the 1940s and 1950s, it was fairly uncommon to use garlic in cooking in the United States. And garlic was not widely used as a seasoning in processed foods. Such a profound change in our food supply has set up a condition where most people experience a constant suppressive exposure to the stimulating effects of onions and garlic, even if they never actually see an onion or garlic clove. What they mean is it's just in the food, like garlic powder and onion powder, and it's all just in there. Yeah, so let's keep going. Ooh, potential benefit, health benefit of garlic based on human intervention studies. A brief overview. Well, don't they love to make studies that tell you that toxic things are good for you? Garlic is a polyphenolic and organosulfur-enriched nutraceutical spice. Polyphenols slow ALDH. We've been over this multiple times. Organosulfur slows ALDH. We know this. What are the other things in garlic? Various bioactive compounds of spices, including alkaloids, tannins, vitamins, and phenolic diterpenes, phenols, polyphenols, flavonoids, and polyphenols, as well as sulfur-containing compounds. They're saying it's responsible for the therapeutic properties. Well, I'm going to say that how is the health of America going since we've been adding more and more and more garlic to things, right? We start making food spicier and spicier, and we're adding more and more garlic and onions and all these things that are super stinky. And spicy is like, how else could nature tell you don't eat this other than it being spicy? So we got that. The effects of different garlic-derived allyl sulfides on anaerobic sulfur metabolism in the mouse kidney. Do we fix kidneys here? Oh, yeah, we do. Just another ALDH. ALDH activity was inhibited in the kidney after DATS administration. That's DATS is diallyl trisulfide. So keep remembering like bisulfide, trisulfide. Okay. I think that's everything on this one. Yep. So I thought I'd go over this because some people think that the thiamine, the magic thiamine from garlic, L-theanine, is the greatest things in sliced bread. Let's just go here. See these two sulfurs bound here? Remember how we just talked about, they talk about how L-theanine can penetrate into the blood better than normal thiamine. Okay. It also penetrates into your brain. You remember that part? So L-theanine, thiamine allyl disulfide, is a lipid-soluble, what is your brain fatty? Oh, it is. Lipid-soluble form of vitamin B1, which was discovered in garlic in the 1950s, along with its homologue prosultiamine. So if you guys want to go, and Joe, if you want to post the berry episode, how berry is a meat deficiency. I've talked about this before, how even plants have to protect themselves from their own poisons. Plants make these poisons, but they have to protect themselves. This is why people will be like, well, why is there so much potassium in all these tropical fruits that are so high in vitamin A? Because vitamin A blocks potassium channels. The only way the plant itself can get around that is to put more potassium in it. The plant has to protect itself or fix its own problem because it's full of poison. This is why everybody thinks that the most toxic plants are the most nutrient dense, because the plants are protecting themselves, and then you eat it and you get the toxicity. So if we said ALDH, things that inhibit ALDH, like polyphenols and sulfur compounds, they inhibit ALDH. What does that tend to build up? Aldehydes. What does your body bind to aldehydes to protect you from them? Thiamine. I go over all this in the berry episode. So why would garlic be so high in a really fancy form of thiamine? To protect the garlic. But what do we know here? What do we know better? The poison always wins. So you don't want to take in a bunch of garlic to try to get thiamine when you're going to get poisoned by all the sulfur. And that's going to make other things more toxic because you're not going to break down aldehydes. So, got that. Oh, let's just get right to it. Garlic hepatotoxicity, safe dose of garlic. Liver toxicity from garlic. Information on the effect of garlic on the liver and optimal dose of garlic to avoid liver damage. Wait, I'm sorry. Optimal dose of garlic to avoid liver damage is not known. So what did they do? This was a 28-day study. This is not a long-term study. So what did they look at? They looked at liver histology, which is they took slices of the liver and looked at them under a microscope. Serum transaminases, this is liver enzymes, bilirubin, bilirubin, and alkaline phosphatase, another liver enzyme, were estimated at 0 days, 14 days, 21 days, and 28 days in control in experimental animals. 1, 2.5, and 5 grams per kilogram. Now that's a lot of garlic. Per body weight per day of garlic showed significant, I want you to pay attention to these words, significant deterioration in liver function tests after 21, 14, and 7 days respectively. So the higher the dose went, the quicker the liver started falling apart. Okay, 5 grams per kilogram, it only took 7 days. 2.5, it took 14. 1, it took 21. It's just longer. Oh wait, toxins accumulate? The more you take, the faster you accumulate them. The less you take in, the less you accumulate them, but you still get to problem areas. A 1 gram per kilogram body weight per day dose of garlic was associated with marked histological damage in the liver after 21 days. The lowest dose they did of the higher doses, marked histological damage in the liver after 21 days. They could see the damage in the liver cells under a microscope. Therefore, 3 lower doses of garlic, 0.1, 0.25, and 0.5 grams per kilogram body weight per day, were given orally to another group of similar rats to determine the safe dose of garlic. So they went way lower, like 10 times lower. Or wait, is that? Yeah, 10 times. 10 times lower. Liver function tests, that's liver enzymes, were serially measured and animals were sacrificed on the 29th day of experiment. All 3 lower doses showed significant deterioration in the liver function tests values of animals after 28 days of feeding the freshly prepared garlic homogenate, crushed garlic, basically. Both doses of garlic, the 0.1 and the 0.25 body weight per day, were associated with normal histology of liver, but 0.5 gram per kilogram body weight per day dose of garlic showed morphological changes in the liver of one animal. So they didn't see cellular damage yet, but they saw the liver tests go up. It's just early. They did 10 times less. It's just taking longer to happen. They see the liver enzymes go up. They just haven't seen the liver cells change. Therefore, the present study suggests that garlic with high dose has the potential ability to induce liver damage. Sounds so healthy. And low doses are safe doses of garlic. Well, they said the liver function tests went up. That's safe? This is what medicine is doing for you, folks. Oh, we still saw liver changes, negative ones, but it's probably safe just because in 28 days it didn't change the actual cellular structure. Okay, now we like talking about bile here. Does sulfur make the bile acid recipe worse? Well, I'll tell you before I go reading this, secondary bile acids are the worst bile acids. They are the most toxic bile acids, okay? So I'm just letting you, primary are less bad, secondary are the worst. Differential effects of sulfur amino acid restricted and low-calorie diets on a gut microbiome profile and bile acid composition in male mice, okay? So they're restricting sulfur amino acids. People will say, but there's sulfur in meat. Yes, there is sulfur in meat, and you still need protein. So what do? We take out the dairy sulfur. We take out the egg white sulfur. We take out the allium, the onion and garlic sulfur. We take out the crucifer sulfur. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, the stuff that stinks when you cook it. Okay? You're not going to avoid sulfur. I'm not telling anybody to avoid sulfur. But let's go over what happens when they cut down sulfur in these mice. Diet can affect health and longevity by altering the gut microbiome profile. We talk about that. Sulfur amino acid restriction, like caloric restriction, extends lifespan. Grant has talked about this before. I've talked about this before. I think most of the time when they have these studies on caloric restriction in animals, they restrict their total food, which means they restrict the vitamin A that they're poisoning them with. That is, they have like a food has a certain amount of vitamin A in it. The mice food is very, it's fake food. They just put in vitamins and stuff, and they put in carbs and they put in fat. So when they feed these mice less food, they feed them less copper, less vitamin A, less vitamin D, less manganese. They feed them less of all these toxic things, and then they see their lifespan get longer. That makes sense. Why does calorie restriction not show up so well in humans? Because these humans who think they're so smart, they say, I'm going to eat less calories, but I'm going to keep taking the same amount of vitamins. So they're going to supplement their food with vitamins, and then they don't see the same benefits in humans because they're poisoning themselves. But what do we see when they restrict sulfur amino acids? They're saying they already know that it extends lifespan. But its effect on the gut microbiome profile and functional significance, like bile, of such effects are understudied. Male 21-week-old mice were fed controlled diets, which has this much methionine. That's the sulfur-containing amino acid they're going by. Sulfur amino acid restricted diet, which is 0.12% methionine. So like, is that 8 times less? No, 7 times less? Yeah, 7 times less. And low-calorie, what was it, LCD, low-calorie diet. So this is the same methionine in the control and the low calorie, but same percent, but it will be lower amounts because they're not eating as much. Sulfur amino acid restriction mice had I want you to listen to this, lower body weights and IGF-1 and higher food intake and FGF-21 than controlled diet mice. So they probably got a lot less protein, but they seem to have higher metabolism, lower body weight, higher food intake, same amount of calories. Controlled diet and the sulfur-restricted diet had the same amount of calories. They had lower body weights and a higher food intake. That sounds like a better metabolism to me. Secondary bile acids and the ratio of secondary to primary bile acids. So this is bad, worse, to sort of better. They were lower in the sulfur-restricted diet than in the low-calorie diet. Sulfur restriction favored bile acid conjugation with glycine at the expense of taurine. Well, to get the low sulfur diet, they had to get rid of the taurine. Okay. Overall, sulfur-restricted diet and low-calorie diets induced distinct changes in the gut microbiome and bile acid profiles. Gosh, we don't talk about bile here. Sulfur affects ALDH. Sulfur slows ALDH. You slow down ALDH, you tend to slow down your bile production, and then it starts accumulating in the liver, which causes liver damage. Didn't we just talk about liver damage? And then you start getting more cholestasis into the bloodstream, and then you feed more sulfur into the gut. You feed more sulfur bacteria. We're going to go over that in a second. And then you create more problems in the gut. Oh, I don't know. Like we're going to go over ulcerative colitis and a sulfur theory about ulcerative colitis. Oh, here we go. Dietary factors in sulfur metabolism and pathogenesis, disease creation of ulcerative colitis. Wow, why would they be linking sulfur metabolism and ulcerative colitis? And then we just saw a study that more sulfur in the diet made more secondary bile acids, which are more toxic and damaging. What a weird coincidence we're having here. The biogeography of inflammation and ulcerative colitis suggests a proximal to distal concentration gradient of a toxin. So they're saying closer to, I believe they're saying closer to the stomach versus further away from the stomach. So proximal to distal means closer to the center, distal is further away. Okay. Hydrogen sulfide has long been considered one such toxin candidate, and dietary sulfur, along with the abundance of sulfate-reducing bacteria. What would sulfate bacteria like to feed on? Oh, sulfur. Were considered the primary determinants of hydrogen sulfide production in the clinical course of ulcerative colitis. Wait. Hydrogen sulfide, dietary sulfur, bad biome were considered the primary determinants of hydrogen sulfide production and the clinical course, or how much worse or better ulcerative colitis got. Okay. Wait, we got this one. At the end of the abstract, specifically, we suggest that the increasing severity of inflammation along the proximal to distal axis in ulcerative colitis. Actually, they're saying it's getting worse as it goes further down. Isn't that right? increasing severity of inflammation along the proximal near to far in ulcerative colitis is due to the dilution of beneficial factors. Okay. Concentration of toxic factors. Okay, folks, we just went over. So your liver makes the bile. It goes into the common bile duct, and it's at the closer end of the gut, right? It's closer to your stomach. Your bile goes into your intestine right by the stomach. Okay. We just saw a paper that as the bile and the poop, the food poop, as I call it, goes further down your intestines, what are the primary bile acids turning into that are worse? Oh, secondary bile acids. And then what is the gut bacteria changing the sulfur compounds into? Hydrogen sulfide and other bad sulfur compounds. The bile is getting more toxic as it goes further down the gut. And changing detoxification capacity of the host. Gosh, did we see that sulfur slows down ALDH, which would then increase aldehyde concentrations? Isn't this distinctly detoxification capacity changing? All of which are intimately linked to the nutrient flow from the diet. Okay. Now, I'm going to put this here because I want you guys to understand, you need to understand that just because I say something doesn't mean that you're going to take it out. Don't take out muscle meat protein. Take out all the other stupid sulfur sources, especially dairy and egg whites and cruciferous vegetables. Don't eat egg yolks either. I'm just saying egg whites are high in sulfur. Take out dairy, take out egg whites, take out cruciferous vegetables, take out alliums. Don't worry about the meat. A crossover diet study conducted by McGee and colleagues demonstrated that dietary protein intake positively correlates with fecal sulfide concentrations in healthy individuals. They're still healthy. Yes, there is more sulfide. There's methionine in meat. Okay? A recent in vitro study that profiled gas production from incubated fecal samples, poop samples, implied cysteine specifically as a primary driver of hydrogen sulfide production. Conversely, the effect of sulfate was small. Cysteine, what are they trying to sell everybody in the whole, like, the coof? The people who are going to save us from all the coof? What do they promote a lot? N-acetylcysteine. They have people taking more and more cysteine. Cysteine drives hydrogen sulfide production. This is a problem in the gut. Feeds the wrong bacteria. Don't take cysteine supplements. And just so you know, N-acetylcysteine was originally developed for the pharmaceutical industry, by the pharmaceutical industry. They just couldn't get a patent on it, so they didn't push it. So then the natural supplement industry is like, hey, let's everybody take this sort of pharmaceutical thing. Okay. Because cysteine likely makes a substantial contribution to hydrogen sulfide production in the colonic lumen inside your guts, there is a critical need to detail cysteine desulfhydrase activity within the colonic microbiome. Sounds pretty important. Maybe you shouldn't feed a bunch of extra supplemental cysteine to it. Okay, let's talk about detox. Although a small amount of hydrogen sulfide present in the lumen inside the colon is able to be cleared through flatus, that's farting, okay? The primary pathway for hydrogen sulfide clearance is via intracellular sulfide oxidation. You need molybdenum to run that. Nobody talks about molybdenum. We do. Interestingly, this pathway may be facilitated by cyanide, which has been proposed by Levitt and colleagues to explain the well-documented beneficial role of smoking in ulcerative colitis. Oh yeah, let's smokers have a little less ulcerative colitis. So, but what does smoking do? Smoking also slows down ALDH. I think I went over that in the inner circle the other day. Nicotine and tobacco slow down ALDH, which slows down bile production, which might help ulcerative colitis. But intracellular sulfide oxidation, you need molybdenum to run sulfur detox enzymes. They don't talk about molybdenum, do they? The hydrogen sulfide detoxification capacity and expression of enzymes involved in the hydrogen sulfide detoxification pathway have been shown to follow a general trend of highest in the proximal colon. So you can detox it the most in the colon closest to the stomach, basically, to lowest in the rectum. This expression pattern lends further support to the hydrogen sulfide toxin hypothesis as the progression of ulcerative colitis progresses from the lowest to the highest hydrogen sulfide detoxification capacity and enzyme expression. Wait, in addition, glutathione synthesis has been demonstrated to be impaired in irritable bowel disease. Well, wait, aren't these people having all sorts of sulfur in their gut? They have lots of sulfur. Why are they not making more glutathione? Don't all the alternative practitioners say that you need to eat sulfur to make glutathione? Maybe it's not that easy. Maybe sulfur even inhibits glutathione synthesis. Wouldn't that be weird? You still need some. You just don't need as much as they're trying to push down your throat. Although there's little data supporting a direct role of dietary fat in the hydrogen sulfide toxin hypothesis, animal fat was shown in a mouse model to result in increased production of taurine-conjugated bile acids and a bloom of the sulfite reducer Bilophila wadsworthia. Gosh, do you think that's bile? Bilophila. Well, phila tends to mean likes. Bile-liking wadsworthia in the colonic microenvironment. A high-fat diet in mice is associated with lesser production of short-chain fatty acids. That's like butyrate, feeds your gut cells, and a greater production of hydrogen sulfide, even when the protein content of high-fat chow is lower relative to regular chow. Can you say keto? High-fat diet, low protein? That's keto, and then we would have carnivore. Okay? More hydrogen sulfide with more fat and more bile-loving, sulfur-loving bacteria. Yeah, let me see if I can find the next one. There we go. Okay, yeah, no more super chats, everybody. If you send any more super chats, then I'm going to have to get to them next week. So we're cutting off the super chats. No more super chats. So I've told people this before, nitric oxide. If you are trying to constantly boost your nitric oxide with arginine or citrulline and just don't, or Cialis or Viagra, sildenafil, tadalafil, any of those, vardanafil, they got a new one, right? Or a newer one. If you are constantly boosting nitric oxide, you are hurting your liver. I've been over this research before. So if you're going to do things to boost your nitric oxide, let's say, guys, you want a little more function in the bedroom, you use it. I tell people, don't try to boost your nitric oxide more than once a week. Okay? If you're taking Cialis daily, you're not going to make it. I'm sorry. Nitric oxide inhibits hydrogen sulfide detoxification, thus lowering the threshold concentration where hydrogen sulfide becomes toxic to epithelial cells. These are the lining cells. Okay? Nitric oxide impairs hydrogen sulfide detoxification. So that would be like a road to, gut problems. So, we're almost done with this one. Short-term, low-carbohydrate, high-protein diets are among the most popular approaches used to achieve weight loss. Such diets do result in decreases in relative abundance of some butyrate-producing bacteria. We want these. They make butyrate, short-chain fatty acids that feed your gut cells. Short-term, low-carb, high-protein diets result in decreases in relative abundance of some butyrate-producing bacteria, as well as altered fecal metabolite profiles, like bile, including lower content of short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and fiber-derived antioxidant phenolic acids. It is possible that such dietary changes can even trigger the onset of ulcerative colitis, which may be reversed with increasing plant-derived dietary components, soluble fiber. However, long-term diets low in microbiota-accessible carbohydrates and soluble fiber can lead to complete extinctions of microbial taxa. We've talked about this before. Like, the longer you don't eat carbs or soluble fiber, folks, the more you mess up your gut microbiome to the point of complete extinctions of certain bacteria. So it just means if you want to be an all muscle meat carnivore, get some soluble fiber in there, sun fiber, whatever, something to feed your gut bacteria to keep them from being made extinct. Okay. There is an intriguing body of literature supporting a relationship between dietary sulfur intake and the hydrogen sulfide toxin hypothesis in the development of ulcerative colitis. To date, the focus of the hydrogen sulfide toxin hypothesis in ulcerative colitis has primarily been focused on the abundance and activity of sulfur-reducing bacteria, example, desulfovibrio, and dietary sulfur intake. However, this provides only a partial window on the total activity of the microbiota that is relevant to ulcerative colitis pathogenesis, disease creation. An updated approach to the hydrogen sulfide hypothesis has to incorporate interactions between different microbial groups, as well as multiple components of the diet. A compelling case does exist that a typical Western diet, which tends to be high in protein and low in fermentable fiber, may promote the accumulation of harmful products such as hydrogen sulfide and even increase their toxicity, and is also associated with a lower production of beneficial products such as butyrate. I don't know if I said this already, folks. You make butyrate, your gut bacteria can make butyrate from soluble fiber. But if you starve your gut biome by not eating any of it, they die off. Patients are intensely interested in adjunctive dietary therapies for ulcerative colitis. That is until they go to their gastroenterologist and the gastroenterologist says, what you eat has nothing to do with your gut problem. Patients are interested in it. The gastros aren't. Multiple technological developments that allow compositional and functional measurements of entire microbial communities should facilitate the development and testing of novel microbiota targeting interventions that include the dietary management of irritable bowel disease. It's so nice that they include the dietary management. We do that all the time. We can fix these problems. So, I think that's it on this one. That was a big one, though. Yeah, I think that's it. So get your soluble fiber, however you're going to get it. Now, let's go into just a couple more ones. But Doc, what about DMSO and MSM? Garbage. Sulfur. Don't use them. If we think garlic's bad and you take DMSO and you have garlic stink coming out of your pores, it's the same thing, basically. Okay. Kelsey is actually the one for any of you who want to, I didn't notice if she's here. I can't see the chat while I'm doing this, but Kelsey suggested I do this garlic show, and I finally got around to it. And Kelsey actually asked if I was going to talk about DMSO, which if you remember, we went over that in the, where was it? This one? No. Let me see. It was this. Let me share this real quick. The reason garlic is so toxic is it contains the sulfone hydroxyl ion that penetrates the blood-brain barrier just like DMSO, a sulfoxide. And this sulfone hydroxyl ion is a specific poison for higher life forms and brain cells. Okay, so now we're going to go back. So what Kelsey told me was that back when she used to work in genetics labs and stuff like that, is they would use DMSO. Actually, let me find exactly what she said. Here we go. Kelsey said, I used DMSO in the lab to literally unwind DNA. Does that sound like a good thing? She said, I used DMSO in the lab to literally unwind DNA. Okay, so let's look in the research. Because I want to, as soon as she says that, I said, well, let's see if I can back that up with papers. I mean, she was already using it, so they knew it happened. DMSO induces drastic changes in human cellular processes and epigenetic landscape in vitro. Though clinical trials for medical applications of DMSO reported toxicity in the 1960s, the FDA classified DMSO in the safest solvent category. Does that line up? Does that make sense? DMSO became widely used in many biomedical fields, and biological effects were overlooked. Gosh, we'd never assume big corporations would overlook toxicity problems because they want something that does something and they don't really care about us, would they? We exposed 3D cardiac and hepatic liver microtissues to medium with or without 0.1% DMSO and analyzed the transcriptome, proteome, and DNA methylation profiles. In both tissue types, transcriptome analysis detected more than 2,000 differentially expressed genes affecting similar biological processes, thereby indicating consistent cross-organ actions of DMSO. Furthermore, microRNA, mRNA analysis revealed large-scale deregulations, that's not good, of cardiac mRNAs and smaller, though still massive, effects in hepatic microtissues. Smaller, though still massive, effects in liver tissues. Genome-wide methylation patterns also revealed tissue specificity. While hepatic liver microtissues demonstrated non-significant changes, findings from cardiac microtissues suggested disruption of DNA methylation mechanisms, leading to genome-wide changes. The extreme changes in microRNAs and alteration in the epigenetic landscape indicate that DMSO is not inert. Its use should be reconsidered, especially for cryopreservation of embryos and oocytes, those are eggs, since it may impact embryonic development. Massive effects in hepatic microtissues. It increases penetration, right? It penetrates your brain, changes tissue, changes mRNAs, changes your DNA methylation. Kelsey said she used it to unwind DNA. That's pretty much what it's like doing. Okay. Now let's go on. The other thing she said was she used it to help facilitate transfection of foreign DNA into a cell culture. They use it to assist with transfection of foreign DNA. Transfection. Foreign DNA into cell culture. Well, let's just look up transfection. What is transfection? Introduction of a segment of DNA or RNA into a eukaryotic cell by means of one of a variety of physical or chemical methods or through viral infection, which is toxins. Or the simpler one, the introduction of foreign DNA into a eukaryotic cell. Well, what are eukaryotes? All animals, plants, fungi, and many unicellular organisms are eukaryotes. So we're talking about humans too. Okay. Now, what's this paper? Enhanced transfection efficiency of human embryonic stem cells by the incorporation of DNA liposomes in an extracellular matrix. So let's go find. Because cell endocytosis plays a major role in plasmid DNA incorporation by lipofection, we also tested if low concentrations of DMSO would increase the transfection efficiency of HES cells. What do you think happened? In addition, treatment with DMSO further increased the percentage of reporter-expressing cells. Oh, here's a little section. DMSO treatment increases the percentage of transfected HES cells. Do we really need to read a lot more? Oh, here we go. DMSO at 2% was mildly toxic to the cells, as fewer surviving cells were observed 72 hours post-transfection. DMSO is not your friend. I've told my story about DMSO here several times. DMSO was one of the worst things I ever took. I thought it was amazing. I had a honeymoon phase for 10 days. And then it all went to heck. It is the worst thing a supplement has ever done to me in my life. Now, so that was DMSO. Increases transfection, unwinds DNA, affects your DNA methylation. Another sulfur compound. Shocking. Well, let's go look at MSM and just see if we can relate it to these other sulfur compounds. MSM, applications and safety of a novel dietary supplement. Let me just make sure this is clear. MSM is methylsulfonylmethane. MMS is what they call miracle mineral supplement. They are not the same thing. You must get the order of the letters correct. I do not like MSM. I discussed the other one in my program. Methylsulfonylmethane is a naturally occurring organosulfur compound utilized as a complementary and alternative medicine under a variety of names. Let's just hit on some of these names. Dimethylsulfone. You remember the sulfone from before? Methylsulfone. Sulfonyl bismethane. Organic sulfur. This is the stupidest term I could. I wish I never would have listened to this term at all. This was what it was sold to me as. It's organic sulfur. Or crystalline dimethyl sulfoxide. Haven't we been hearing a lot of these terms before? Prior to being used as a clinical application, MSM primarily served as a high-temperature polar aprotic commercial solvent. It kind of might dissolve things, huh? Like your blood-brain barrier and other things like that. As did its parent compound. Okay, MSM is the parent compound of DMSO is MSM. It's an antioxidant, which means it'll generally slow down your oxidative detox processes. Its ability to induce histamine release from mast cells. Gosh, so what if other sulfur compounds that you're eating are inducing your histamine release? Why do we help people with histamine problems so much? Is this part of it? What does histamine break down to, folks? Histamine breaks down into an aldehyde. You can look it up. Sulfur slows ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase, that detoxes aldehydes. Huh. MSM causes a histamine release. MSM will eventually slow ALDH, which then means you can't process the aldehydes from the histamine or the dopamine or anything you eat, or the dextrose that you might have been duped into. Others postulated that some of the biological effects attributed to DMSO may in part be caused by its metabolites. We didn't talk about that today, did we? Pretty sure we did. Yep, that's it for this paper. So if this helped you for a short period of time, okay. This is the whole basis of pharmaceutical medicine, folks, is that it helps for a short time while it's slowly ruining your health because it's a poison. So I believe that's it. So hopefully nobody posted any more super chats, because I think I got 6 of them to go through now. But that is garlic. So if you want to go mess around with garlic, DMSO, MSM after reading all this, hearing all this, I mean, you can. It's not going to end well. I do know that the guy, the raw garlic dude or whatever on Twitter, he's like angry as heck. He eats like tons of cloves of raw garlic a day. Not tons, but I mean, not literal tons. But it's not going to end well. So let me find my chats. Where did my chats go? There it is. Okay. We got that. Okay. So let's hit these super chats. Joe, do you want to post them in order, or should I go look for them myself? Do I have to do everything myself? No, I'm kidding. Joe's super helpful. We love having Joe here. So, here they are. Okay, he's got them. He's already ahead of me. So Brandon sent a super chat. Thank you, Brandon. Brandon's a regular on the super chats. He has thoughts on niacin's rebound lipolysis hours, 3 to 6 hours after, with saunas to tolerance to sweat through sebum glands, bile/cholesterol bound toxins. Seems to be one of the safest ways to clear blood bound bile toxicity. Timing niacin. Okay, so if you're taking my theory on this is, if I believe the rebound lipolysis, I think Kelsey has told me this from the research, the rebound lipolysis goes away a lot after a while. For somebody who's chronically taking flush niacin, that rebound lipolysis that happens over time goes down, just like almost any effect does. So I'm not gonna, okay, so people want to get into the, like this is getting a little bit into minutia. I do think what we have is we have research on the, if you wanted to call it the Scientology flush niacin sauna detox protocol, we have research on that. The Gulf War, if you looked up Gulf War detox or detoxification, or I could find it here. I've been over it before. Gulf War, there it is. Okay, Joe, if you want to show this. Already highlighted a detoxification intervention for Gulf War illness, a pilot randomized controlled trial. This is basically, the gist of it is, you take your flush niacin, you immediately do some form of cardio, mild to moderate, for 20 to 30 minutes. And the idea is you're getting the increased oxygenation, the movement, you're putting fats, stored fats, subcutaneous fat you can burn into the bloodstream. And then you go and you do the sauna, which, you know, they're talking like 2 or 3 hours, I believe. Low temperature sauna, like 140 degrees, I think. Low temperature. Long time, low temperature. Now, most of us don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. So what a lot of people do is they do the sauna, they do some cardio, and then they just do whatever time, they do their niacin, they do their cardio, and then they do whatever time they can manage in their schedule in the sauna. Infrared sauna is better than a regular sauna. Doesn't mean you can't use a regular sauna, just means infrared sauna, the heat actually penetrates deeper into your tissues, so it can kind of get you sweating more. Do I think, answering this question is difficult, because you get people, I have people here who are very, very sick. They are super duper toxic. And if that, first of all, they may not even be able to take flush niacin, or they take a really low dose and they flush really hard and they're really uncomfortable, which means they're really toxic. Okay. So then I have people who are so sick they can't exercise. Like a walk for them would crush them. And then I have people who sauna is like out of the question. If they take too hot a shower, they feel wrecked, much less doing a sauna. So you start combining these fancy tools. Like, so here's the thing, things that can detox a relatively healthy 20-something, 30-something year old guy, which is most of the biohackers, right? Something that can really detox them hard, but they have the capacity and the time and that youthful, chi to recover from it. They think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then you get my clients, like the gentleman with the fibromyalgia, who can't do this. Because any one of these things, the niacin increasing the bile dumping, the exercise, the sauna, it's too much at once. So people hear me here and they go, oh, I'm going to go out and do this. And I'm like, no. Like, first you'd figure out, can you even take flush niacin at all, at any dose? Then you'd figure out what you can take and what doesn't push you over the edge. And you realize that if you push up close to the edge, you're now that much closer to the edge. Okay. So then, can you even do some cardio? Can you even walk for, could you walk for 5 minutes? Okay, that's one thing. Can you walk for 15? Can you walk for 30? I don't know. What kicks your ass if you're one of these really sick people? And don't kick your ass. And then, do you have a sauna available? Are you going to get one? Or is that too much for you? Like too much heat, because heat dumps bile. So we're doing 3 things that dump bile. We're doing flush niacin, we're doing exercise, we're doing heat. All 3 of these things dump bile. You layer these on top of each other, it's a great way to kick your own ass. It's a great way to kick your own ass. Are you detoxing? Yes. Do you like detoxing with a side of kicking your own ass? I don't know. So these things are not, I just had a woman who talked to, let's say, the guy out there who wrote a PDF on the niacin exercise sauna protocol. And he told her to take a sulfur compound This is a woman who is very, very sick, like multiple chemical sensitivity, EMF sensitivity, very, very sick. She talked to me before she took it. I said, don't take that crap. You're going to make me fix it after you break something again. She took it. She took only a little bit. The guy pushing this said, you're going to take the normal dose. It doesn't cause problems. How many of us have heard that before? Did it cause problems? Yeah, it caused big problems. I warned her of all this stuff beforehand. What did I get? You were right again. So, we deal with the sickest people around here, folks. I take my job very, very seriously. I'm not going to have like everybody, I'm not going to be like, well, you should take, and this is sarcasm, I'm not saying this, you should take 1,500 milligrams of niacin and then do cardio in the moderate heart rate range for 30 minutes and then sauna for 3 hours straight. Like, that's not how I get people better. First, it would be, can you take niacin? Then it might be, the person might say, well, I know I tolerate some sauna, but exercise I can't do. Or let's say you had somebody who's like, I can go for a walk, but the sauna is too much for me. Okay, so you're going to start with the one you tolerate. And you're going to go very gently. If you figure out you can take some niacin, you take the niacin, and then you pick the one that works for you and you start gently. Do I think this is a useful approach? Yes. Do I think it's easy to kick your own ass? Yes. If you go and kick your own ass, do not blame me. You may want to take a binder both before you go and do this and after you do it. A binder, I would not really consider soluble fiber a binder because soluble fiber triggers bile dumping. I would consider charcoal something. And if you say, well, I can't take charcoal, Dr. Smith, because it constipates me too much, then I'd say then maybe you better go even slower so you don't kick your own ass even harder. Because if you're constipated, it means the bile is not going into your guts. It's going somewhere else, which is probably why you have symptoms that you're coming here to figure out how to fix. Okay, Brandon posted another question. Thoughts on macros with niacin being ideally carbohydrates hours 0 to 2, then hours 3 to 6 avoiding carbs due to fatty acid peroxidation. Pairing this with the other sauna info seems like a detox upgrade. This is like minutia. I mean, I this is stuff that I don't even get into thinking about. Like this is high level stuff that most of my people, they just need to eat what they tolerate. This is the high level stuff is like, if you want to figure out the high level stuff, that's fine. By the time you're doing stuff like that, where you're adjusting your macros and all this stuff, you're probably not that sick anymore, where you can actually pay attention to this stuff. Most of my people just want to find foods that they can eat and get better with. And then if they're going to do this sauna stuff, they just need to make it through and not kick their own ass. So generally, I would say, if you're going to be doing, so as we talked about in the dextrose episode, destroying the dextrose fad, like if you're in the sauna and you're drinking a bunch of sugary water, electrolytes, the sugary water is going to slow down your ALDH and it's going to make more aldehydes. So it may slow down the whole process. Generally, I would say if you're going to be doing the cardio, if you're trying to get fatty acid oxidation going, you wouldn't be eating a lot. You'd want to be trying to burn fat. But then again, if you don't eat and you want to do 3 hours of sauna, boy, you're going to be in for a rough ride. And they even gave these guys in the detox intervention, what'd they give? I know they gave them electrolytes. I think they gave them some food. So it all worked. I just don't think that's Okay, when people get into the word optimizing or this kind of stuff, I just kind of check out because I kind of think y'all don't understand the people I'm dealing with. And I'm not saying you, Brandon. I'm saying like getting into the biohacking and the optimization and all that stuff. I just go, this is like what the other gentleman was talking about with his fibromyalgia. He's like, they're talking to these like mostly well people that they're trying to get a little bit better. They're not talking to the people who are thinking about which caliber to eat for breakfast, as he said. So there's a huge difference. And as people get better, they can figure out some of these things on their own. And as you're getting better, the whole idea of needing to optimize becomes kind of less useful because you're already doing better. So I can't even think about macros. I would just say eat something good before you. Well, if you're using flush niacin, you should be taking it with food. So there's your meal, and then you're looking at a little bit of cardio and some sauna. I don't know that you would necessarily need to eat in there. And then obviously, if you wanted to burn fat better, eating a whole bunch of fat would probably be counterproductive and not good for your liver so much. So why eat a bunch of fat? It would also slow, your gastric emptying and all that stuff. So, that's what I got. I have not even ever given a thought to macros during sauna detox. So Ramon, another regular super chatter, but thank you for those super chats, Brandon. Ramon asks, hi, Doc. From an aging perspective, what is your take on grass-fed, pasture-raised cow collagen peptides? Good, bad, necessary, not? Thank you. I recently, somebody was just telling me, or was it Good Texture on Twitter? I commented that I read this one. It was a protocol about something, and they recommended collagen, and I thought, oh, I got some collagen around. I'll try it. And I tried the collagen again. And I don't know if I went over this in another live stream, but after about a week of the collagen, I started noticing that my morning masculine function indicator had all but disappeared for the last couple days. And I went, this ain't good. What's going on? Here's the question you should ask yourself when these things happen, folks. What did I change recently? So I went and I looked at my my flush, and I went, I added that collagen. And I remembered in the past, back when I used to think it was healthy to add collagen to my coffee, that I did not like the taste of the collagen in the coffee. It did not taste good. I did not want it in there, but I still drank it because I thought it was good for me, and I eventually stopped. And then I said, I don't think this collagen is good for me. Again, I took it out, and within a couple days, the issue that had not come up was gone. So I have my doubts about collagen. If you noticeably feel good on it, it's going to fall into one of those, like, if you feel good on it, great. If you don't feel good on it, don't do it. Somebody else pointed out that collagen is sort of yellow. Maybe. But other people have brought up the fact that collagen and gelatin are quite loaded with histamines. And histamines turn into an aldehyde. Aldehydes have to go through aldehyde dehydrogenase. The more you run through aldehyde dehydrogenase, the more you slow it down and use up the nutrients that are needed to run it. And if it's not running well, then you're just building up aldehydes anyway. So I am not a huge fan of collagen peptides, but it's individually determined. I'm never using them again. Okay. Wow, this is quite a question, Susan. This is like thoughts on anti-inflammatories, pharmaceutical garbage, COVID, fake, toxic bile theory. The best. Anti-inflammatories and COVID. Okay, so anything that was used during the COOF that seemed to help, whether that's quercetin or anti-inflammatories or whatever is generally shutting down your bile production. Because what is the COOF? It is a massive internal toxic bile dump that is leaking into your system. What is the flu? Massive toxic internal bile dump that's leaking into your system. What is a cold? Massive internal bile dump leaking into your system. So if anything helped, especially if it's pharmaceutically related or a non-essential nutrient, like let's say, oh, I don't know, vitamin D3 or quercetin, I could show you research that vitamin D3 slows ALDH, which means it slows bile production. I could show you research that quercetin slows ALDH, which means it slows bile function. I could show you research on anti-inflammatories probably slowing ALDH and therefore reducing bile production, which is part of how they reduce pain, because you leak less bile into your system because you're, for that time, because you're not pushing it out. Recommendations, black cumin. I'm going to do my next show may be on black cumin seed. It's toxic. It smells like freaking something you'd find in a mechanic shop. It's not good. Curcumin. I've been over curcumin. Curcumin is garbage. It's it's carotenoids, toxic to the liver. Quercetin slows ALDH. ASA, acetyl salicylic acid. Aspirin is like the only painkiller I use when I really need something. I use generic Alka-Seltzer, and I use it as little as possible, and I get off it as soon as possible. Bromelain. Yeah, I actually took bromelain recently. I was testing it out just to see about it, and it does not agree with me either. All the categories at once. All the categories at once. I mean, if this is what they're pushing, boy, these people are going to be messed up. They're going to be like later, they're going to be like, why did I get this new disease? I don't get the flu anymore, but I got this new autoimmune disease. Or why did I get cancer or whatever? You know, it's just going to be the same thing. Would activated charcoal or sun fiber help? I mean, okay. Here's the reality of the work that we're doing. If somebody is in the middle of a massive leaking into their system toxic bile dump, let's say it's to the point that it's life-threatening, we are not at the point of let's help their detox anymore. We are at the point of shut it down, which is what pharmaceutical drugs are best at. So that they get IV things and they put it right, you know, intramuscular. They're injecting things. They're putting things right into you to shut it down. Funny thing, I talk about vitamin C slowing detox, and there's research on doing vitamin C IVs during septic shock, septicemia, to help people live through it, because an IV of vitamin C will shut down your ADH and ALDH and slow your bile production. That's how it saves people. That's how the other drugs they use save people. If you haven't seen my anaphylaxis and sepsis episode, you could go watch that one. So if we're at the point where somebody's about to die, we're not like talking like, oh, we don't want to slow detox. It's not even an issue anymore. Now, if somebody's just sick, well, as they showed with the COOF, the more pre-existing conditions you have, the worse it was. Well, the more pre-existing conditions you have, the more toxic you are. Right? That makes sense. Obesity, diabetes, cancer, whatever. More pre-existing conditions, the more toxic and deficient somebody is. So it makes sense that their toxic bile dumping is going to be more toxic, and they have less nutrients to protect themselves against it. So they get sicker. As we are getting people better on the program, over the long time, they stop getting sick. And if they do get sick, it's barely noticeable. Like, I think I got sick maybe about 6 months ago, and all I got was body aches for a couple of days. There was no other symptoms that I could note. But I was like, this is weird. Is this what being sick is for me now that I've been doing detox this long? Like, I couldn't tell what it was. Am I sick? Maybe. So, but yeah, all those things that you're looking at there, Susan, that whole list, anti-inflammatories, black cumin, curcumin, quercetin, acetylsalic acid. So I don't know. Let me just go do a quick search of bromelain. Let me see if bromelain. We'll throw it out there. See if bromelain inhibits aldehyde dehydrogenase. Wait, here we go. Joe, can you show this? Bromelain is a proteolytic enzyme that contains one sulfhydryl group. Interesting. So if I'm and so if you slow ALDH, if it's let's just go look. Let's just go search sulfhydryl. So disulfiram is specifically a, sorry, let me show this. Disulfiram is specifically a pharmaceutical medication intended to slow down aldehyde dehydrogenase. So they're saying disulfiram labeled with carbon-14 reacts specifically with human liver aldehyde dehydrogenase E1. That's what they want, with a loss of catalytic activity. It slows down ALDH. And no incorporation of the labeled, the carbon-14. Carbon-14 labeled diethylthio, that's sulfur, carbamate is formed in that process, and the number of enzyme sulfhydryl groups decreases from 34 to 30 during this progress. Activity is recovered by 2-mercaptoethanol. I'm pretty sure is that a sulfur compound? But not by glutathione, the physiological reducing agent. Anyway, sulfhydryl groups in bromelain. I said sulfur slows down ALDH and detox, and they're throwing out bromelain as something to help with the coof. Yeah, I'm going to say that's probably what it's doing, is slowing down detox, and therefore slowing down bile dumping. Oh, did I forget to share this one, Joe? I thought I did. Yeah, see, it was, here's this paper, Human Aldehyde Dehydrogenase, Mechanism of Inhibition of Disulfiram. And they talk about sulfhydryl groups in here. I couldn't find anything specific on sulfhydryl and ALDH. But we can see from the patterns that would help. Oh, you want the link, Joe? Fine, Joe. I'll get you the link. There you go. Okay. Joe was saying I sit lower in the chair towards the end of the show. Yeah, it's hard to keep my brain going and keep my posture going at the same time. Okay, so let's see. Zendog sent next week's super chats can start here. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you for the super chat, Susan. Let's get to your other one. Toronto Film Festival, lots of cases, all vaxxed. Well, there's their first problem. Number one symptom, brutal headaches, classic vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity symptom, ear and eye aches, brain bile dump. Well, no, it's the body dumping toxic bile back into the bloodstream, whether it's leaking through the bile ducts or the liver itself or the leaky gut or going back up into the stomach and being absorbed. Doesn't really matter, but it's leaking into the system and going up to the brain, toxic bile contains vitamin A and copper and lots of other toxic things that all easily cause headaches. So it's a bile dump, but it's going to the brain and it's affecting their brain. Yes. Thoughts on vitamin D, calcifediol, not D3, and ivermectin. Ivermectin is insecticide. If these people are, I'm just, okay. Vitamin D, I've shown, slows ALDH, which means it slows bile production. Ivermectin slows ALDH, slows P-glycoprotein, slows cytochrome P450s. Like, ivermectin slows down everything. These people already did enough damage with the jab. And now they're going to go do more damage with these other pharmaceutical compounds. They're going to get sick again. What are they going to do then? They're going to do more of this stuff, cause more damage, and then get sick again. This is why people don't realize that a lot of their herbal supplements and a lot of the things they take every time they get sick, why do they keep getting sick? The things they take every time they get sick are why they keep getting sick. The less things people do other than facilitating detox, like if I got sick, what is the first thing I tell people to do in the what to do if I get sick section of the Love Your Liver program, which is a separate section that you can purchase access to? The first thing is go and rest. Stop scrolling doom porn on your phone. Start watching funny things if you're going to watch something on TV, and just go and lay down and stop doing things. Because stress causes bile dumping. Hey, if you're getting sick, you might feel a little stress. So then if you could lay down, you could probably feel less stressed. There's just like simple things like that. But people who are running to the I'm sick, I want to shut it down are shutting stuff down, and they are causing more damage to the system. So there's a difference between saving somebody's life and just every time running to the medicine cabinet or the herbal supplement cabinet and shutting things down with more natural things. It's still shutting things down. And that list of things, these are all things that I would never use. Can we say they're helpful but not Love Your Liver kosher? They're not. Pharmaceuticals are not ever part of the Love Your Liver program. Neither are jabs. Neither is vitamin D by mouth of any type. If people are doing these things, they are usually in a situation where they are choosing to do it because maybe they're just a little sensitive and they don't like it, or maybe they need it really bad at the time. But if they don't figure out how to get out of the situation they're in and start cleaning up the system, it's going to get worse, and they're going to have to escalate, just like they do with chemotherapy, where they give you the mildest chemo first, and then the cancer comes back, and then they give you a stronger chemo, and then the cancer comes back, and then they give you a stronger chemo. That's what these people are walking into. I mean, I'm not their doctor, so if they want to take anything pharmaceutical, they got to talk to their doctor. And if they're going to pharmaceutical doctors, then they're getting pharmaceuticals. No, I mean, I folks, if you're waiting to start on this process, you want to start sooner rather than later. Because the later you go and the more you FAFO with all these supplements that are not essential and pharmaceuticals and horse paste and all these other things, the more damage you do, the further the hole is that you have to dig yourself out of. That's just, it's like you can keep layering crap on top of crap and then wonder why you have a pile of crap that you have to undo. Or you could start working on it sooner. Like, I don't know. I do not have giant Hail Marys up my sleeve for people who poison themselves really, really badly. There is no shortcut to this. I am not an emergency room doctor. So if people really get themselves messed up and they're like, "Doc, what do I do? I'm in the hospital." That's not my area. I am keeping people from the hospital. I am helping people to not have to go back there. But what's going on when they're deep in whatever deep in a super toxic bile dump that's threatening their lives, that's not my area. It's just, you can't. The last ditch efforts are last ditch efforts for a reason. The reason why we didn't do those first is because they're probably not going to work and they're probably not good for you. That's why they're last ditch. So, last ditch. Hopefully not the last ditch you see. I'm not saying anything about ivermectin being okay short term. If somebody chooses to do that, then it's just going to have to be repaired later. If they're doing it to save their life, that's one thing. If they're doing it just because they don't like the sniffles or they have a headache, I can't endorse that. I won't. The ivermectin psyop is in absolute full effect right now. They're going to start putting out events where they're going to be like, ivermectin save this person, ivermectin save this person, ivermectin save this person, and it'll undo jab damage. And it's going to get bad, folks. If you don't know what's coming, it's coming. So, yeah. So that's what I got on that. Okay. Joe, is that all the super chats? But thank you for the super chats, Susan. I wish I had a better answer, but like people poisoning themselves short term just to like not be sick. A lot of you out there, all of us got ourselves sick by kind of taking the easy way out with pharmaceuticals before we knew that we can't trust the pharma cartel. And before we realized that they really do just make poisons that make our body do something for a short period of time while it's damaging our system. So to facilitate taking more poisons to counter what is a poison dumping in the system, a self-poisoning of toxic bile, I can't get on that train. Especially not, I can't endorse that for people out there. Now, might they need to slow down their detox? Might they need to, I don't know what to do about these people who took the shot, folks. I don't know. Can they get better than they are now? Yes. Can whatever they put in them be undone? I don't know. Can it be undone fully? I don't know. Nobody knows. The people pushing all this garbage supplement crap for the spike protein, they don't know anything. They're just shutting down detox. So they don't realize it, but they can't tell you what they're actually doing. They just say, try these things because, quercetin helps zinc get into cells. And you go, why was the zinc not getting into cells? How does the zinc from red meat when we eat it get into the cells? Do we need to take quercetin with it? Like the whole zinc transport thing is just nonsense. How do we raise people's zinc levels over time? Oh, by taking zinc. Do we use quercetin? No. Well, how does that work? The whole coof thing, the whole cottage industry of coof treaters and coof supplements is just, it's not good for you. Unless it's charcoal. Or lactoferrin. Lactoferrin has good research, but lactoferrin can and does induce dumping. I believe there's even some flesh niacin research out there about the coof. But does flesh niacin potentially increase bile dumping? Yes. So you have to watch these things. You want to know how you react to these things before you get sick. Not all of a sudden when you're sick, start taking these things and then go, oh, it might be worse now. So, yeah. I think we're going to wrap. Oh, Joe said no super chats. We did it. Okay, so thank you very much for coming, folks. You saw the testimonials. You saw that you can leave the garlic at the store for all the other people to get and ruin their brains and livers with. And we went over some super chats. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I will see you all next week. Gosh, it's only like 4 days until I'm doing this again. Okay. Oh, and then there's, consultations. Joe just put up that link if you want to work with me or Nathan or Hope or Kelsey. And you want to get the hair test and the blood test and the 6 months access to our office hours. We now have 4 office hours sessions a week because we have 4 practitioners and each one of us have our own office hours a week. But you could go as a client, you could go to any of them. Whoever you work with, you can go to any or all of the other office hours as part of your package. So we are here to help along the way. We are not like so many other practitioners who you do your consult and you go home, and if you don't feel good from what they told you to do, which happens, of course, to everybody, well, they want you to pay them to come in to have another visit to undo what they did. We give 6 months of support because we don't want you to be alone and trying to do all of this on your own. When people who are just starting, they don't know what they're doing. So how would they know how to troubleshoot? So go and pay attention to that testimonial from Joe, Zen Dog Breath. Those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program, go through the order of adding stuff again. If you've never looked at it, boy, you really should. And you should keep people who have been in there a long time, go back through it. And go through each piece so that you could be like, oh, wait, I missed that. Or maybe I tried this thing before, but it didn't work a year ago, but let me try it again and see if it works now, because this happens. As you get less toxic, if you were real sensitive to supplements, you become less sensitive to the same things later. And then you can take them. And then, like Joe may someday be able to take oral potassium, but at the start he had to do topical. Okay. So Joe's putting up the links for the testimonials. I think he also put up the links. And we're all done. Y'all have a great week. I will talk to you later. Bye now.